Welcome to Destination Business Freedom, hosted by Pat Mancuso. Join us as we explore success strategies and hacks from leading entrepreneurs, helping you bridge the gap between financial success and personal freedom. Your journey starts here.
Hey everybody, Pat Mancuso here. I am so excited that you've arrived at the Destination Business Freedom podcast. I am really excited about our guest today. We'll jump into that in just a second. My goal with our podcast is to help business owners in their journey to that destination. And what do we mean by that destination? Well, that destination is their exit. Now, for many people, that exit takes on various paths, if you may. They might just totally sell the business. They might stay in the business. But here's the point. I haven't met a business owner yet that didn't have a desire to exit at some point. And our guests in our journey are going to help us to talk about where they've come from, the challenges that they had, the successes they've had, and what they've learned along the way. So we're very excited that you're here today. I do want to share our sponsor for our episode today. So the episode is brought to you by the Mancuso Consulting Group, which uses a proprietary method that's called the Mancuso method to help entrepreneurs and business owners dedicated to closing that gap between their finances and their freedom. That method was created by Pat Mancuso, the CEO of the Mancuso Consulting Group, and it encompasses over 30 years of his journey as an entrepreneur, owning multiple businesses, exiting from businesses, as well as over 30,000 hours of consulting time with business owners. You can go to www.themancuso.method, take a very short assessment. That will allow you to schedule a call with Pat. And that call will be, you will receive a report. And as part of that report, you will receive an opportunity to spend 30 to 45 minutes with Pat. And Pat's guarantee is this: if you don't receive $10,000 of value from that time together, he's going to cut you a check right on the spot for $500 because that's how much he believes in that value of that process. So once again, www.themancuso.method.com. So Chris, we're super excited that you're here today. I'm really excited that you took some time to join us.
You bet. I'm psyched to be here. I love to chat.
Well, and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge how we came together, and that's Noah Tetzer from Rise 25, and he absolutely raved about having you on the show and the value and the benefit you could bring to us. So I wanted to acknowledge Noah. Noah, thank you so much. So Chris, I'm going to read the intro if you're okay with this, and people always love this. They're like, oh, they got to hear it, but this is some pretty good stuff, you guys. So Chris Prefontaine is the chairman and founder of Smart Real Estate Coach, a 4-time best-selling author, just in case y'all didn't know or see it. He's sent us some amazing books, and there's some good stuff in those books as I've started to read them. He is a Forbes Business Council member and a 3-time Inc. 5000 honoree for fastest growing company. Wicked Smart Community operates all over North America and has successfully completed hundreds of transactions, assisting students in doing the same. Alongside his achievements, Chris hosts the Smart Real Estate Coach podcast, which ranks in the top 0.05%. That's really high. That's less than 1%. He's in the top globally. Having navigated through challenges such as the crash of 2008, 9/11, and the near-death experience with his son, and oh, by the way, COVID and that impact there, Chris has re-engineered his entire business to weather all storms and economic cycles. Now, what's not in here is the current state of real estate, which I know we're going to talk about as well. Understanding these challenges, he helps students and navigate the constantly changing real estate waters. Chris and his wife, Kim, have been married for 37 years. Congratulations, Chris, on that. And their adult children, Nick and Kayla, participate in the family business while pursuing their own entrepreneurial careers. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pat. I'm psyched to be here with you.
Oh my gosh. Well, first, some similarities. You've got family working in the business. I have family working in my business. We've both got very rich and deep histories in real estate. So, I'm pretty excited about what we're going to pull out of you today. So let's start with, just tell me a little bit about how'd you get into real estate? Where did that start?
Yeah, I grew up in a family business that was not real estate. It was actually a welding supply company, my father. But at an early age, I worked there. But while I worked there, I learned how he built on the side real estate. One was he would build his own brick and mortar buildings and lease them back to himself. And I remember, I don't know what age, maybe 10 or 12, saying, well, I don't get it. You're the same person. But, in hindsight, okay. So he leased back from his company. The company leased back from him. So then he would hang out with, even though he did that business for years until the early 90s and he sold it, he would hang out with people who also dabbled in real estate but had conventional businesses, land flipping, raw land, improving it, and doing the engineering and flipping it. So I was around that. So I always had a passion for real estate, but that's what opened my eyes to it. And then when he sold his business in 91, I had just started about a year earlier building some homes with a builder. I didn't know how to build a home, but I was kind of a partner in that. And then we went full time. I didn't have a choice. When his company got bought, about a month later, they fired me, even though that was not the plan. Kids were 1 and 2. They gave me a month's severance and said bye-bye. So I had a month basically to ramp up any building or anything I had going on and get out there and get after it. So that was kind of like the beginning stages.
That's how you got into real estate, death by fire.
Yep.
I love it. I love it.
Everything for a reason. I want to do it, right? So they said, okay, see ya.
Well, here's what's really interesting about that, Chris, is that, first you talked about the, in my opinion, in my world and what we do today, you talked about this tax strategy of owning a business, owning a property, if you may, that lease back from the business. And there's huge tax benefits of that. And so, it's exciting to hear that your dad had some people around him that picked up on that because, most people wouldn't understand how that's a great strategy. The other thing I loved is that, you learned the business from somebody who obviously was very successful. And you had a choice at that time when he sold the business. You could stay in it or you could do something else. And that passion that you experienced from, I'm sure, being around your dad in the business, helped you to create that trajectory of where you're on today. So, congratulations on that. I mean, real estate is not the easiest business to be in. There's no doubt about it. And yet it's pretty simple if you do some of the right things. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I always say there's one constant in real estate. It's always changing, right? And people go, well, I got to time the market and I got to do this and I got to buy it. No, you just have to understand how to operate in any market and be comfortable with it, which is what we do now since the last crash. Yeah. And you'll be fine.
Yeah. So Chris, let me talk a little bit about, I want to dig into your journey as a business owner. The goal of our podcast is to really help business owners to get to that point of that exit, like your dad did. And, for some people, that exit is somebody taps them on the shoulder and says, hey, I want to buy your business. Other times there's, owners who are like, okay, I've had enough of this. I don't have any of the freedom or the financial that I expected. And then other times people get bought out by venture capital or equity. So our goal is to help people get to that destination, whatever it is. So I want to ask you a few questions before we jump into what you're doing for the real estate community and agents today. In this journey that you've been on for almost 30 years now, what have been the biggest challenges as a business owner that you either didn't expect, didn't see, or really struggled to overcome?
I would say a few things, but all related around people. Because I've said now for the past 5 or 10, because I get it now, and that is that people drive revenue or can sink a company, right?
Yeah.
So people, the culture around the people, everything to do with people, I think was a big eye opener. The importance of clear communication, not easy for everybody. All of people issues that can come up. I could go on that one.
Well, and Chris, what's interesting about that is I have, we do business consulting, and I was on a call with a client this morning, and we're taking that client through our process, and his number one issue today on the call was 2 individuals and, people issues. And so you're right. And, it makes my heart sing, unfortunately, that a lot of companies do struggle with that. And so that's not uncommon. Let me ask you another question around that journey. So what advisors didn't you have around you that if you would have, you might be in a different position than you are today? I know you're in a great position, but were there advisors that you felt like that after the fact you realized you really needed and didn't have in that journey?
Yeah, in hindsight now, I'm clear on this one. There's probably a whole bunch, but I always have a coach of some sort. But what I always was prior to 2015-ish was, I would consider myself more of a solopreneur, maybe a team member or two or a family member or two, but a solopreneur. Until I said every 6 months or 12 months, I say, okay, what's going to be the next thing I got to get good at or learn or get through the struggle with? And then I find a coach. So in mid 16 into 17, we said, all right, if we're going to scale this thing, and I'm going to create any kind of scalability and then salability and get me out of the picture a little bit, I got to scale. So we found, through a number of different contacts, we found a spinoff of the Infusionsoft company. They spun off this arm called Elite Entrepreneurs. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but they advise companies moving from 7 to 8 figures, and you got to do, minimum $1 million to get in. I was just hitting that way back then. And so it was an interesting journey. They sat with me and showed me not only how to scale it, but we plugged into them ever since. The culture, the mission, the values, everything we do, I owe it to them. Because I was just grinding it out every year.
Yeah.
And so that's a big difference.
Well, and, Chris, what's really common is that entrepreneurial, people get into business as business owners because they have that entrepreneur. They don't want to work with somebody. Maybe they want to have more financial freedom, more flexibility. And yet, in most cases, because they don't have some of that background that you talked about gaining either through a coach or consultant, they don't have any of that. And until they actually get that expertise, somebody who's gone through it, somebody who's experienced it, somebody who can teach the models and the systems to basically replicate yourself, it's a struggle for a lot of entrepreneurs. So not certainly uncommon. Let me ask you one other question around that journey, and then we'll shift gears here a little bit.
Sure.
What surprised you the most about being a business owner?
Okay, again, it could be a bunch of things, right? But I would say how hard it is. Let me generalize. I'll say how hard it is. I did a video on this recently because people think, oh, so-and-so is so lucky, or you guys, no, it's hard. Entrepreneurship is hard. And so I would seriously say that's the biggest thing. I know that's like 10,000-foot view, but it's harder than you think always, in my opinion. Entrepreneurship is no easy road. The payroll, the this, the that, it can wear on you.
Well, because you're always having to change, right? You're always having to flex. There's things that happen that are outside of your control, market conditions. Yesterday the stock market dropped quite a bit. Nobody can control that, right? You can only respond to it. Right. So I want to dig just a little bit on that one, because I agree with you. I think there's a lot of challenges entrepreneurs don't see when they get into it, experience it when they're on the journey, and then really don't know what to do. What's been the hardest thing in that journey? Like, it's hard, I get it, but go down just a little bit. What's the hardest? What's been the hardest thing for you in that journey?
I would say when you're scaling, like we are, managing the growth specifically around, say, cash flow. Because I'll give you a quick example. So in 18, we say, hey, we're going to go ahead and start pushing money towards advertising now. Okay, good idea. We never did that. We grow organically. So the person pitching you their ad campaign is, it's going to be peaches and cream, right? Everything's going to be great.
Yep.
Okay, well, we make that decision. This is like every decision, is why I'm using this. We make the decision. 8 months later, we look back and go, yeah, it's not what they said. And we spent 80-something grand. This is just one example. But my point is, you make a decision or you try to correct something and a year's gone like that.
Yeah.
And that's difficult because you have these goals and aspirations to scale. 23 was like that for us. It was a year of change, and you make a decision. It takes forever to fix. And so that's the toughest thing, I think, how long it takes to pivot and get back on track.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. And what I love about doing these podcasts is, get to meet some amazing people and talk to them about their journey. But B, it really validates the whole journey that we're on with business owners, because you talked about making that decision. And a lot of business owners, every business owner is making decisions every day, all day, multiple times a day. And yet sometimes they're making those decisions in silos where it sounds, like you said, I'm using your words, it sounds peaches and cream, it sounds good. The return on investments would obviously had to be there for you to make that type of investment. And yet at the end of the day, it didn't necessarily get you where you wanted to, which then the impact of that is, if you go back to that destination address where that exit is, and I'm going to ask you a question, you may not have an answer for it in just a second, but that decision you made either took you closer to or farther away from that destination. And that's the challenge that I see for a lot of business owners. And it's a real challenge, right? I mean, it's just a real challenge. So one last question, at least on this part of it, and there's no right or wrong to this, Chris. Have you thought about what that exit looks like for you?
Yeah, we have in the last few months. I'm 58. We got a couple of grandkids now, and so we're thinking of creating experiences, Pat, as you could probably imagine, versus grinding out grinding out in the same fashion. I'll work always, but grinding out in the same fashion. So yeah, there's a couple of things going on. We're speaking to different possible equity partners as well as family. There's family members in the company. So my son-in-law is very involved, and then my daughter's doing some stuff again. She had two kids now. She's back rolling around doing properties. So yes, is the short answer. And I think in the next 2 years, we'll figure that out before I'm 60. And that was the whole game plan.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, succession plans are fun, particularly when they're family members. So let's flip the script. I am excited to talk to you, Chris, today. And I know there's a question that's on everybody's mind. So let's clear the deck on this one. You got all these lawsuits. You got the industry changing. You got changes at NAR. You got all this consumers changing. And for me, what's ironic is when I started in real estate back 1990 selling, we had just come out in our market of a class action that related to and created, in essence, dual agencies. So I kind of came in on the tail end of what we're experiencing now. So what I'd like to find out from you right now is, give me your perspective, if you can, as a business owner, as an individual who services buyers and sellers. Give me your perspective on what's going to happen moving forward. I know you don't have a crystal ball, and yet I'd love to hear how you guys are approaching what's happened recently in real estate.
Okay, so our lane, just to set this up, is we teach investors and wannabe investors, W-2s, how to become investors.
Yep.
So it's creative real estate versus just realtors. Are there some realtors, just to put this all in perspective, in our Wicked Smart community? Yeah, there's a small handful. I'd say maybe 10% are. In my opinion, they all should be, but it's about 10% are. As a past realtor, I now see both sides, right? Because I was a high producing realtor before I did this. Okay, so back to the market. Whenever there's chaos, like the NAR lawsuit was great for this, where I'm going, the interest rates going up, the election coming, the media still screaming since 2015 that we're going to have another crash, all these things that are chaotic means the market's chaotic, means they need a guide, means creative real estate's at a peak. Like in my 33 years, I started right when you did, 91 I started. In my 33 years going through brokerage and building homes, and now this, there's never been a better time for creative real estate because of the things I just said. So in my world, it's great. In a lot of the relative world and a lot of the other people, mortgage brokers, they're getting beat up. So that's why we're getting pulled, actually, for more demand on the creative real estate. So it's getting very interesting for us.
So talk to me about, so you're helping people build wealth through the investment of real estate, which is what really real estate should be doing, right? But you're doing it at a different level. You're not doing it at the residential level. You're really doing it from a business mindset perspective, right?
You nailed it, because we're teaching people how to become entrepreneurs. Right. Like most people don't get what you just said when they come in our community. They think, oh, I'm going to learn how to do a deal. No, that's a job. We're going to teach you how to become a CEO and build a team that can go out and do a bunch of deals. And there's a distinction here too with this economy. We teach them how to, because I came out of the crash of 2008.
Yep.
And I had no money. My credit was in the toilet. Everything was gone. I had to move to a 1-bedroom apartment. So that means my wife said, well, when are you going to get back at it? And I said, well, how am I going to do that? So what I did is I said, all right, I'll buy real estate without using banks. I'll buy it without using money. I had none, and without using credit. So that's how we buy in the creative space. We don't use those. We don't take out bank loans. We don't sign personally. And then, yes, we teach them how to become entrepreneurs and build a team around them.
So let's drill down a little bit on that. Because, I mean, that's like a topic that everybody should be really focusing on right now. And yet most people, Chris, would say, well, prices are at the top of the market. How in the world am I going to make any money? So how are you teaching entrepreneurs to make money investing in real estate? And to just add a little bit more element, I heard you say without any of their own money.
Yep. A couple of things, just statistically, if you read, I'm not done. I'm almost done Tony Robbins' third book in his trio. Yep. And the stats he gives about real estate they're beautiful, because He basically called out the media and called out all the things that they're screaming about that are wrong. I mean, in 8 or 9 recessions, whatever it is, prices went down once. Like when I teach an investor to buy a property without their own money, owner financing or lease purchase, for example, and I can teach them how to do a term long enough, i.e. 7 or 10 years, who cares what the market does? Because that's a long time. If you're talking 2 years, okay, be a little nervous, but not if you're buying creatively, you're not signing personally, and you're creating terms of 7 or 10 years. That's a safety net, a big safety net.
So go into a little bit more detail about, let's say I come to you and I say, okay, Chris, I want to get into this. I want to get into this game. How do I do it? And you know, maybe I don't have any money. Maybe I don't have any credit. What am I looking for?
Okay, as far as how you structure the deals and stuff?
Yeah, well, even how I find a deal.
Okay, so we teach from A to Z. So because it's how I get out of the crash with Zippo coming from an apartment, right? So we are going to speak with people that are either, realtors know these words, they're either expired listings or they're for sale by owners or they're for rent by owners. We're going to look to do one of two things, because people say, how do you convince them to do this with no money down? And I don't get it. You don't. You listen for a problem, or on the other side, a goal that's not being accomplished by the conventional market. So let me weigh these two. We mostly teach residential, but I bought my building this way. So I had a gentleman that was free and clear on a nice commercial building. He, for state reasons, trust reasons, and tax reasons, he wanted owner financing. He was seeking it. And the realtors were bringing him off, and he's going, no, they don't get it, Chris. So we structured a deal with him where I didn't have to go through underwriting, and he became the bank, owner financing, right?
Yep.
He was not hurting. He was free and clear. Other side of the spectrum, you have, I don't know what the numbers, it's millions of homeowners who have those low interest rates now, right?
Yeah.
Well, some of them don't want to stay in their home or can't. And every week in our community, someone's buying a house, Pat, subject to the existing loan staying in place.
Sure.
Meaning they don't sign on personally, and they're buying that at somewhere between 2.5% and 5% interest rate. That's pretty cool. So all you're doing is helping them out of a problem, or helping this other person who's debt free accomplish a goal the market's not bringing them. We can usually pay top dollar because we get our term.
You know, Chris, what I love about that, a couple of things. You know, first, and I'm sure you'll agree with me on this, whether you own a business, whether it's a small business or big business, lead generation is always a component of that. So, you know, you mentioned expireds and for sale by owners, and you know, you have to go out and find those. You have to go out and shake the trees. And so what I love is that's always true for any business. But what you also said, and I think this is true for a lot of businesses, you have a choice. You can let the market come to you, or you can create the market, and you're out creating the market. And that individual that you talked about that owned that investment property, most people, you know, again, if they don't have this knowledge, they don't understand. Not everybody wants to sell a business or a property or an investment and take all the money right now, because depending upon where they are in their journey, depending upon how that deal was structured, it may make more sense for them to take money over time and take it structurally differently. Yet most people don't have that knowledge. And even on the other side, the business owner doesn't have that knowledge. So you ran into somebody who had that knowledge and go, no, I don't want all the cash right now. I'll take it over time. I can make more money over time selling that property to you. And it's just that knowledge that's so powerful.
I agree. I was pre-crash, figure 17 or 18 years in the business, not doing this. If I had done this when I was a realtor or a builder, I would have created, instead of that sort of transactional, hey, I sell a house, I get paid.
Yeah.
I would have created much more wealth. I trademark a 3 payday system, Pat. It means an investor can get paid now. Great. We all do that in real estate, but they can get then set off in motion monthly cash flow and long-term cash flow. So you get off that proverbial treadmill. That's a good business model for any business, but let alone real estate, but we just do it on houses.
So I was going to ask you about that. So go back and talk about, I think I got the 3 days, the 3 paydays, but talk about it again.
Yeah. So let's just switch from that commercial building and go to a house. That's mostly what we teach. If I teach other things, then the shiny object syndrome comes into the students' heads, right? They go, they don't know what to do. So I teach single family. When we buy a property, doesn't matter how we buy it, we exit it by putting in a buyer who needs time to qualify for mortgage. Either the credit needs a little work, or post-COVID, this is a big one, they've got cash, they left the W-2, they took a severance or a 401k, but they're not financeable yet. The banks
Right.
won't finance that 2 years, as you know. So those are great buyers. We put them in a home on a rent-to-own program. And then they're going to exit anywhere between 2 and 10 years, meaning they're going to get mortgage ready, cash us out, we cash the seller out. So we're the 3 paydays. Payday 1 is they come to the table with a down payment. They were ready. They just didn't know they're not financeable.
Sure.
Payday 2 is the spread between the underlying loan I'm paying on or the seller and what I'm charging them to live in the home as a lease. They're not getting credit for that.
Yep.
So there's a delta there. And the third payday is picture like let's just do a 4-year deal. The underlying mortgage has principal pay down. We're benefiting from that. And we're benefiting from any markup. And that's huge. So for example, on a free and clear home, we do principal only payments. So picture making $1,000 principal only payment for 4 years, and then my buyer's paying me $1,500. I get the principal pay down, I get the spread, and I get the upfront. That's the 3 paydays.
And you do that enough, right? I mean, somebody might look at that delta of $500, $6,000 over 4 years. It's 24,000. Chris, come on. And yet, if you did that with 10 properties, that's 240,000. If you did it with 40 properties, that's $1 million.
Yeah, that's payday 2. Let me put the other ones in perspective for everyone. So I'll do 2 things here for metrics. So one is our community runs between like a low of 45,000 and a high of 350,000, all 3 paydays per deal. Those are significant numbers per deal versus back in the day where I do a commission and, whatever, 10, 20 grand.
Yeah.
Secondly, I'll give you a real simple go to the bank with this metric. When I find a home free and clear, and by the way, 39% of homes in the US, up from 33%, are free and clear. That's a lot of homes that you can talk to.
Yeah.
So you find a home for 200 grand or higher. Most markets you can do that. You structure at least a 4-year term with the seller. I can show you how to do that. And then you structure a monthly principal payment of at least $950. You have a 6-figure deal, all 3 paydays over 4 years. Every time.
Wow. So the skeptic who might be listening goes, Chris, come on. How many of these deals are out there, like in my market?
Yeah. I'll give you metrics from the community. So the average student takes around 157 days right now to do a deal.
Okay.
That's giving no lopping off the outliers, like someone who quit, someone who has low goals. Like we just put everybody in there so we can get our metrics. We have done anywhere from 1 to 10 of these a month personally as a family business, let alone the community. But if you look at the community, they do anywhere between 5 and 18 a month around the country. In anyone's particular marketplace, Pat, we draw a 50-mile radius. That's where the leads come from. So they can stay right home and do it. And they can go anywhere from 1, 2, or 3 deals a year to 12 or 24 a year, depending on how aggressive they are. But how many deals do most people listening really need if they run, 50 to 350 grand a piece? How many of those they need a year to really change their lifestyle?
Not very many.
That's why we help a lot of people leave their job. The high income earners leave their job.
So Chris, let's talk about then. So you've got this amazing model. You obviously have perfected it in terms of being able to show people how to do it. When you're leading them, coaching, consulting, I kind of interchange those terms. What's their biggest struggle? Like, which area do they struggle with the most?
Okay, most people think this is going to be like a skill set nugget, but it's not. It's mindset. It's mindset, and there's a bunch of things in that. One of the biggest ones is mismanaged expectations, because business owners have this too, but
yeah,
there's so much marketing now in every industry, but education and real estate in particular, that you see the rented Lamborghini and the plane and, get rich quick tomorrow. I'm the first one. We're not great marketers, but we know how to do deals. So I'm the first one to say, look, it's going to take you some time, but once you learn the skill set, so manage your expectations. Once you learn the skill set, even if you just go buy your own home in the next 5 years, you won. You'll have that skill set for life. I can't take it away from you. So the biggest one is that mismanaged expectation. And that, I think, falls under the mindset piece, because I was at a RIA recently, a real estate investment club. We were speaking at it, my son-in-law and I. And this guy came up and he'd been following us a little bit. And he said, hey, you know what I didn't realize? How hard this is mentally. Because as you know, as a business owner, that's the transition. It's not the skill set. I can teach everybody how to do a deal. Yeah. It's the mindset piece.
Well, and it's I think my journey is so it's interesting, and the reason I want to tag onto this is, so we're in the middle of negotiating. We bought into a national franchise outside of real estate, and we're negotiating real estate space, commercial real estate space. And I had a call with the tenant rep and the asset manager today, and I said, what expectation should I have from, LOI finalization to lease? And they told me about 6 weeks, and my mouth, Chris, just about dropped. I'm like, 6 weeks? Are you kidding me? And the fact of the matter is I didn't want to hear it, but now that I've heard it, I can manage my expectations around it and then make plans accordingly. And you're so right. I think that people have these expectations and they're not real, or they're not based on anything, or it's an illusion they created. And so that makes a lot of sense, because that can play with your mind and your mindset. So what's the biggest in this journey that you've undertaken, if you made this evolution? What's the biggest mistake you think you've made along the way in what you're doing right now?
That's a good one. The whole picture.
The whole picture.
Two things.
Okay.
Yeah, two things. One, not doing that, not seeking out the proper leadership / scaling coaching earlier. Yeah. I can't imagine, like when he showed me you'll be a $5 million company, I kind of in my mind went, yeah, but no.
Yeah.
And we're doing that. So I wish I did it earlier. Two is help with, we run under a system called Profits First now, but whatever it might be, help with a financial system earlier too.
Yeah.
So scaling and financial, because you're not going to go too far if you don't have those. So those two, I wish I did earlier. Those were toughies.
Yeah. Those are pretty common, Chris, in terms of, you mentioned this a little bit earlier in our podcast, is, cash flow and profits are different. And most entrepreneurs don't understand. I say this respectfully, but it's in my journey, over the last couple of years, we've helped about 850 business owners. And every one of those business owners, we've had access to their financial statements as part of the work that we've been doing. And there's many times people don't even understand how to read a P&L, long let a balance sheet, and they certainly don't, in many cases, even know what a cash flow statement is. And so I think you're right. I think that's a big piece that I know for us, it's as soon as I can get in front of a business owner and know where they're at in terms of that journey, because really every decision you have to make is based upon those 3 documents. And if it's not based upon those documents, it's like, making decisions like a blind person is, it's very hard to do. So let's flip that script. What's the biggest success that you've had in this journey? Like, what's the thing that you're the most proud of in what you're doing now?
2 things again come to mind. One is on a personal level, because my wife said it last night to me as we're doing our planning. She said it's really cool that the kids, that they're in the 30s, are they're on their own, they're independent, they're doing great, and they have some off businesses too. Like, that's really cool. And I started when they're 18.
Yep.
The second piece that's really cool, which I kind of wanted but didn't know it would come to fruition, which is helping these individuals really create the lifestyle that they never thought was possible. The students, i.e. the students, because we've helped people, all of our coaches, coincidentally, for example, were in long-term jobs. One was in the government for 30 years, for example, making a couple $100,000, 100 employees, and he left with us. Most of them leave within 2 years. That's a really cool feeling. So people don't get when you coach that you get to experience that with them, and it's a whole experience versus one event.
Yeah. It is cool to see that in that journey. So what haven't I asked you that I should have asked you, or what haven't you shared yet that you feel like you really have to share?
I wouldn't say really have to share, but I think this is a general enough comment, Pat. So it doesn't matter what business you're in. That's why I want to make it. It doesn't matter what niche you're in, or business you're in, or industry you're in. 3 simple things I always use to have success. One, because it kind of goes with how I answer things. One is pick the industry. In my case, pick the niche in the industry of real estate, right?
Yep.
That you can get behind for a lot of reasons, like morally, ethically, personally, schedule-wise, lifestyle-wise. Pick that. Like our transactions, for example, they're win-wins and people like them. But other people like to sit behind a computer and do land flips. So it's just different.
Yes.
So pick the niche. 2, appropriate to what I said earlier, pick someone or a community or mentor, whatever. That's what I've always done, who has also done what you want to do, and you can relate to them. And I say that because you and I both know a whole bunch of business owners who have destroyed relationships in their life to become successful. I know some very personally. So I personally wouldn't want to follow that. Okay, you had all that success, but you can't show me how to do anything else. So pick that person or group. And then third is the toughie, put the blinders on for 3 to 7 years. That's the toughie, because everybody goes, yeah, I'll do that. And then they drop off. Brian Tracy, you're old enough to know Brian Tracy.
Yep.
Some people go, who the hell is that? Brian was on my podcast during COVID in 20. And he was like 82 then, I think. And I gave him my 3-year philosophy of the blinders on. And he's the only one that said, no, stop. I said, what? He said, I've been rich, I've been broke, and it takes 7 years. Not 3, Chris, 7. I said, okay, he challenged me. And so I've been speaking about 7 for forever now, because he said it takes 2 or 3 years you're going to really suck at something. Then 2 or 3 years, you'll feel like you're adequate, and then you'll make your breakthrough. And I look back, and go, boy, he was kind of right. So I say 3 to 7 now with the blinders. Those are the 3 steps.
Well, and Chris, first of all, I love the concept, and that again creates that expectation or that mindset, right? Because everybody wants it yesterday. Everybody sees, people like you who are successful, and they go, okay, well, I can go, I do that, which of course they can. However, they don't understand what's happened behind the scenes and how long it took you. And then the other thing, which I like in the 3 to 7 is, we live in a world, unfortunately, where I think this is happening more often now is, you have things that happen more often. We had the crash of 2008, we had the recession of 2015, we have COVID, and now we have the whole thing that's going on right now in our world, and in those things, there's nothing you can control like everything, right? And so you do have these experiences. So I'm gonna ask you in just a second how people can get in touch with you and what you can provide to those folks. But I want to ask you one last question, and this one's kind of an interesting one. What advice do you wish you would have gotten sooner in your journey, and how much do you think it cost you because you didn't?
It would be a longer version of the piece I just said of the 3 to 7 years. Because when I was younger, and I hear a lot of people tell me, yeah, I do that. I'm in my 20s. Is it chasing the next thing?
Okay.
So the strict sort of bumper lanes, if you will, to stay with something for 7, 10 years and find someone to bring you along that journey, not try to recreate the wheel. So it's never gonna reach quick. And if that would be something that would have got me there sooner, I would think, got me on track sooner.
How much do you think that cost you?
Oh man, I mean, if you look at just since we started this in 13, so it's 11 years ago, that's millions. And so now what about the first 22 years?
Yeah.
That's expensive.
And it is, and I love your answer, by the way, because we all have it, right? And the reason that I asked that question is that everybody wants what they want now, and they don't understand things like the compound effect. They don't understand it does take time. They don't understand having goals and staying within those guardrails, and the shiny bling thing happens, and yet time on task is so important, and it gets you to where you need to get to. So I love the way you put that, because it is absolutely so true. So as we kind of close, Chris, what I'd like to do is, you send me these amazing books. And so, what would people get from these books if they were to go out and get them first? What would they get?
Yeah, the main one, Real Estate on Your Terms, is the A through Z system of what you and I kind of been alluding to, what the company does. That's Real Estate on Your Terms, yeah. And it got revised right during and post COVID. It wasn't even planned. We were doing it. And perfect, because all these changes came. So it's rather current. And it walks you through what we do from lead generation that you mentioned all the way through to creating the 3 paydays. And you get to see different walks of life in there too, like different students from different markets, different price range, different backgrounds, because everybody comes to me, as you can imagine, says, yeah, but it might not work in my market, or it might not work in my price range. No kidding.
That never happens, Chris. Come on.
No, it's crazy. So that's in there. And we'll give one to you. We'll give a link to your tribe. And it's not one of those free offers, Pat, where you go put in the credit card for shipping. That's not free. This one's truly free. We'll ship it from this office. You'll get hard copy books.
Love it. And where is it a link you want to share that with us later?
Yeah.
Put in the show notes. Perfect.
Yeah. I can give it to you. It's Wicked Smart Books, wickedsmartbooks.com/Pat and the number 1. So Pat and numeric number 1.
I love it. That way, when people hear it, they can go get it, even if they're just listening or driving. So, Chris, any final thoughts? Any parting ideas or anything you want to share before we sign off?
Sure, real quick, don't let the media sway you, especially from real estate, but from anything, because the last I checked, none of them were certified for creative real estate. So take your lane and link up with someone who's doing it, and that could be in any lane. It doesn't have to be real estate.
That is so true. So true. One of my mentors, Chris, I'll end the show with this. One of my mentors who actually sold their real estate brokerage for $80 million. They were one of the first major acquisitions by Ascendant NRT. So that dates you and I. But he was mentoring me in my journey of leadership in real estate. And he said, I want you to remember the title of this book. And he said, you don't even necessarily have to read the book, but just remember the title. And I said, okay. And I looked at him kind of puzzled, and he said, your opinion of me doesn't matter to me. And I'll never forget that. I've never read the book, Chris, but I didn't need to. It goes to what you just got done talking about, is don't let others dictate your life, because many times people are going to dictate your life at less than their life. Right. So if you take their advice and they're, $100,000 a year, no offense if you're making 100, but if they're $100,000 a year performer and you're taking advice from them and you want to be at $1 million, you're taking advice from the wrong people. And it just goes to who you surround yourself with, who you listen to, is really important. So Chris, thanks so much for your time. I'm so excited that you're with us today, and appreciate Noah connecting us, and you're doing some great stuff. And obviously there's still amazing opportunity in real estate, because the last time I checked, nothing in real estate ever goes to zero.
You bet. Thanks, Pat. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks everybody for being with us today. Tune into your favorite podcast source. Listen to the Destination Business Freedom and share it with your friends. We'd love to have impact on as many people as possible. Take care.
Thank you for joining Destination Business Freedom with Pat Mancuso. May the insights and strategies shared guide you towards financial prosperity and personal freedom. Continue to navigate boldly. Until next time, keep transforming challenges into achievements. Farewell, and stay the course.